The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Hello and welcome to Real Reviews. My name is Jamison Rabbit, and this week I've got an old familiar face with me. It's Steve Sabatke. Welcome back, sir.
Emphasis on the old.
Oh, I knew it when I was coming out of my mouth.
Yeah. So can I announce that this is a no streamer edition of Real Reviews?
That is very true. This is all theater all the time.
Theater.
Big screen edition.
Lots of popcorn.
Yeah. You're
Lots
right.
of popcorn.
Yeah, both of us pulled a double feature one of the days, unwittingly sat in the same theater
I think we're in the same screening and we didn't know it.
That's pretty good. That's wild. Yeah, we got 4 movies on the marquee this week of various size and style. But I'm going to get us started with the first one that I saw. It is a film that you mercifully did not see.
No, I took a hard pass.
But it's a film called Bones and All from director Luca Guadagnino. Stars Taylor Russell as a teenage girl named Marin. She's a teenager who has proven difficult to raise. Her father has tried locking her in her room, but she always escapes. And when she does, well, she gets into trouble. Big trouble, because, well, we find out early on that she is a cannibal. Her father is tired of moving every time she eats someone and having to cover for her, and he can't do it anymore. And so he leaves her with a cassette tape revealing her past and her mother's mysterious past, and he takes off. This is set in the 1980s when cassette tapes were just the norm. And so she heads out on a trip across the Midwest, hoping to find her mother, who she believes to be residing in Minnesota somewhere, and hoping to get some answers. And along the way, she runs into some folks, one being a fellow cannibal named Sully, who is played creepily by Mark Rylance. He smelled her coming into town, and he takes her in, teaching her how to be a better version, a better hunter. But he is weird. He is super creepy. He keeps the hair of his victims, which he has braided into a rope and carries around with him. That's disturbing. And it's Mark Rylance with this super creepy voice. Marin also stumbles across another fellow cannibal, a guy named Lee, played by Timothee Chalamet, who is very much not creepy. And this is where we get our meet cute, with him stumbling out of a building covered in blood after having devoured someone. And he agrees to join her on her journey. And we get your classic road trip cannibal movie with 2 teens struggling with falling in love in the 1980s. That old gem. And as they travel, we meet more people like them, especially in this really harrowing scene around a campfire. Pretty creepy stuff going on. And we find out what exactly Bones and All actually means, and it's pretty disturbing. And like most teen romances, it's kind of a rocky road for these two, and they have to face some existential crises, as everyone in this movie seems to be holding a secret. And it's an artistic cannibal movie, in artistic cannibalism and how the story is told. But it's gory, and it's not just gory in visuals, it's gory in audio, because there were some scenes I couldn't look at, but the audio was so disturbing, it was tough.
Oh,
Not
wow.
for you, sir.
No. I mean, when I first heard that the director was making another movie with Timothee Chalamet,
Right.
I mean, I was excited about that.
He did Call Me By Your Name.
I loved Call Me By Your
Sure.
Name. It was one
With
of my favorite
Timothee
films.
Chalamet and noted Hollywood cannibal Armie Hammer.
Yeah, okay. But it was one of my favorite films in 2017. But then as I started to read more about what this film was about, I said, no, I'm not going to go see this. And I guess it raises the question, was all that gore necessary to tell this story?
I do think that the movie was really interesting. The gore was what it was. It's his choice to go with that way of, that's his story to tell. I don't know. It's not something that I really enjoyed. It reminded me, there's a French movie I saw a few years ago called Raw, about a young girl who goes to college and finds out that she's a cannibal.
Okay.
It was interesting. 2 really wonderful performances here. Timothee Chalamet is obviously Luca Guadagnino's muse. I mean, he inspires him. He gets great performances, and he he's great on screen. And Taylor Russell was really interesting. I liked her. And Mark Rylance, every time he was on screen, he fully creeped me out. Like, just, I don't like this guy. And so that was really effective.
Yeah. Well, he was doing his job then, I would.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting story. It's an interesting story of the 1980s and this teen romance and this road trip. In that, it's an interesting movie. In the cannibalism, you can take it or leave it. It's your mileage will vary.
I'll leave it
on that. Yeah, I don't blame you.
Sounds like a wonderful movie to see for the holidays.
Yeah. I'll agree with that. But I did enjoy. I enjoyed the performances, and I kind of enjoyed the story they were telling. And without getting into spoilers, the stuff between her and her mom that was really interesting, kind of got revealed in the third act, was something I haven't seen in a movie like that. And so I enjoyed it enough. I enjoyed Bones and All enough to give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars.
Wow.
But I could definitely understand if you want nothing to do with this movie, because there were moments in here where I didn't want anything to do with it either. But it's an interesting teen romance story. So.
Okay.
Moving on to a very different movie. What do we have?
Absolutely no gore in this one. This is The Fabelmans, and it comes from Steven Spielberg. And it is, you could have just as easily called this The Spielbergs, as the movie is a semi-autobiographical story loosely based on his adolescence and how his love of the cinema and movie making started and how it grew as he was growing up. And it starts in New Jersey in 1952 when Bert and Mitzi Fabelman take their young son Sammy, which is the character based on Spielberg, to the theater to see his first film, The Greatest Show on Earth. There's a train crash scene in the movie. Sammy's mesmerized by that, and he decides to recreate the crash on his model train using his dad's 8mm camera, and so it begins. And the father is played by Paul Dano. Bert, the dad, he works with computers. He dismisses Sammy's passion for film as just a hobby. He wants his son to take up a career that's more practical, such as engineering. The mother, Mitzi, is played wonderfully by Michelle Williams. She is the opposite of her husband. She is a former concert pianist. She gave it up to start a family. She encourages Sammy to pursue his dreams of making movies. She steals the show. It's a fantastic performance. She will be nominated for an Oscar for this. Most of the film centers around Sammy as a teenager, played by Gabriel LaBelle. And there's a number of different themes that are at play here. I mean, you do get to see the roots of filmmaking for Spielberg. You see Sammy making films with his friends in a Boy Scout troop, and he does a film about Senior Ditch Day. Another is the anti-Semitism that he encounters when he goes to high school. And family plays just a gigantic role in this movie. If you ever wanted to know why Spielberg puts single parents or has divorce themes in his films, this movie is going to tell you why.
This is your skeleton key
This
to
is
understanding it.
It is very personal. It's a movie about family, what happens when a close-knit family starts to fall apart. Seth Rogen plays Benny, Bert's best friend and coworker. He's a surrogate uncle to the Fabelman children, and he unfortunately plays a role in that. But it revolves around how do you pursue your dream of being an artist while at the same time, being responsible for your family, trying to become something that your family wants you to become, and the conflict that's associated with that. And there is a very small part, about in the middle of the film, with Judd Hirsch.
He's in the movie for like 6 minutes. And
he plays Uncle Boris, Mitzi's
amazing.
uncle. He goes into this very passionate, emotional soliloquy to
Art
Sammy.
is going to make you choose.
About family versus art and how Sammy should pursue becoming an artist. As you mentioned, he's only in the film for a few minutes, but wow.
And he turns that movie and propels the movie to where it needs to go. Judd Hirsch just comes in and just steals it. He's so good in that.
I mean, if there ever was an Oscar for Best Short Performance, he would win it hands down. But, don't go to this thinking this is your typical Steven Spielberg movie. I mean, it doesn't have those big, flashy, dramatic moments with the powerful John Williams score backing it up. I mean, it is a John Williams score, but it's more subdued.
Much more subdued, yeah.
I mean, it's not Jaws or Close Encounters or anything like that. I mean, it's more what I call subtle Spielberg.
Well, and it helps you really understand the man.
Yep.
It's his love of movies. I mean, it opens with saying, movies are dreams that you never forget. And you start to see the wonder of a child seeing his first movie on the big screen for the first time. And then the mother who is the artist who embraces art and music and is a free spirit, and the father who's very pragmatic and science-oriented, and how Steven Spielberg has encapsulated both of those in his life and in his films. A man who is both brings fantastical wonder to the screen in these E.T. but also is an innovator in science in movies. Jurassic Park
Yep.
and Jaws, and how he is an innovator of science and effects in movies. You say, I can see how this all kind of blends together. And the character of Sammy, the surrogate, is great as he kind of melds these and deals with these. And there's real emotion in this movie. And Michelle Williams, she's great, and she blew me away in this. And she, I think, is so perfect in kind of finding this balance in her character. There's a moment in there where she goes in.
Bet you know what the scene
She goes
is.
into a closet.
Yep, that's it.
And just the look on her face as she sees the horrors that she caused, and echoing the horrors on the face of a soldier.
By watching a film.
Right. And then you see the echoes of this soldier in one of his films at the horrors that he sees before him. Mm-hmm. It blew me away. And there were moments in this movie where it gave me such joy that I literally had tears of joy coming, and then tears of sorrow later. And it was like this movie affected me a lot. I really, really I was blown away by this. And a lot of this, I felt like I recognized a lot of what young Sammy went through. I saw some echoes in things that happened to me in my past. And I love this movie so much.
Yeah, I mean, this is his love letter to the cinema.
Yes.
This is something that I read where he started thinking about making this in 1999, but he was so concerned that his parents were not going to like it. And so he kept putting it off until it finally got to the point before they passed away. They actually had been nagging him to make this film, and I'm sure it wasn't an easy film for him to make.
Yeah.
I mean, he puts his heart and soul into this. I don't think you're ever going to see a more personal statement from him ever again.
Well, and I appreciate that he treated the parents, they felt like full color people.
Yes, they did.
It wasn't characters, one was good, one was bad,
No,
this was that.
it was not.
I felt like I understood these people. They had flaws. They were good people. The mother who really was supportive of him in every way, and she had her flaws, and everything about it. And then you roll in, it almost turns into like a high school teen kind of beach blanket bingo type of thing, and he all of a sudden his first young romance involved. And at first I thought, I don't know if I'm digging where this is going to turn, and then it pays off really well, I thought.
But I read where a lot of that actually happened.
Yes, yeah,
It
exactly.
did.
Right.
I mean, it did happen. And there is a great cameo from director David Lynch in the movie. I'm not going to tell you what it is.
It's so good.
And the ending of the movie, the very end of the movie, I mean, if you were a movie lover and you're paying attention to what's going on, it is so clever.
Yes.
As to what happens right at the end. But you got to watch it because you may miss it.
I felt, I put my notes together, and I'm like, I could talk about this movie for an hour.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much in this movie that I want to talk about, and echoes in Spielberg's life and his movies, and it's just, it's one of the movies that lived up to the hype that I had going into it, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, if you love movies, you should love this. You really should.
Absolutely. And it's in theaters, and unfortunately is not doing
great
business in theaters, which is frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the batch of these great movies. Like She Said, I know you talked about that last week.
Underseen.
That's just not, the box office has not been kind.
Yeah.
But
all right, The Fabelmans. What do you end up giving The Fabelmans,
well,
sir?
I gave it 4.5 stars. It's pretty darn close to being perfect.
Yeah.
Not quite there, but real close.
Yeah, I hemmed and hawed, and I went for it, and I gave it 5 stars.
Did you really? Okay. I mean, I could have.
This movie got me.
I was going back and forth on that.
Yeah, this movie got me in the emotions a few times. I really love it. And in the grand scope of Spielberg movies, I think this is a really, really solid entry with probably our greatest living director. It felt very personal, and yeah, I love it. And so high recommend from both of us. Definitely go check it out. Go see it in theaters right now. We're going to be talking about this one too, and Best Picture and Best Director time comes around.
I'm sure we are.
I did see that Michelle Williams is really pushing to be nominated for Best Lead Actress as opposed to Best Supporting Actress.
Why would it be Best Supporting?
Well, because she's not in the movie for large swaths of it. And I'm afraid that she's going to run up against Cate Blanchett in the Best Lead Actress.
Yeah, that's true.
I want her to win an award.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to what else we have this week. We have a film called Devotion from director J.D. Dillard. Stars Jonathan Majors as Ensign Jesse Brown. This is set against the backdrop of the Korean War, based on a true story of two of America's greatest flying heroes in the Korean War. Film follows Jesse Brown, an African-American airman, the first African-American airman to pass through the Navy's new standards, and his journey of battling the institutional racism of the 1950s in order to follow his dreams of being a fighter pilot. Also follows his bonding with his wingman, a handsome Captain America-type officer, Tom Hunter, played by Glenn Powell. You know him as Hangman from Top Gun Maverick. He's right back in the cockpit again. And we're with these two men as they go through training onto an aircraft carrier and into battle, while watching them become a tight-knit unit through jokes and through fisticuffs, as with all these guys in the unit. But it's Jesse, a man who is soft-spoken, as he kind of fights for every inch of respect that he can get in this newly integrated integrated military, who drives this story. And the first half of this film is kind of a step-by-step as he learns to do what's needed. We see him kind of progress his way through, and we see him learn to land on an aircraft carrier. And it feels like it's kind of leisurely paced to me at the beginning. Like, it kind of felt dry and it's kind of standard. And one of my frustrations with that fact is I felt like in the beginning there were stretches where there wasn't a whole lot going on story-wise, and yet they still weren't able to flesh out a lot of the other characters in his unit who were throughout the entire movie.
Well, they all kind of meshed together.
Yeah.
They were all kind of one just...
Especially when they have their masks on in other films.
They weren't really indistinguishable.
They were all very indistinguishable. Oh, that guy's from New York. Okay.
But this is one of those movies that I put in the category of I wish. Mm-hmm. I wish that the producers would have spent more time telling us about the lives and the backgrounds of these two individuals.
Yes.
Especially Jesse Brown. Because if you read about him, I mean, he was the first African-American aviator to complete the U.S. Navy's basic flight training program. Graduated as salutatorian of his high school despite racial segregation. Earned his pilot wings in 1948. I guess there was just a flurry of press coverage about it. And, of course, he encountered racism during that time. Now, he talks about it a little bit in the movie.
And I liked how Majors played that. You could see it in his eyes, as the pain, the scars that he's had.
Yes.
And how he kind of carried that. I liked his performance in that. But, yeah, we could have gotten a little more.
Yeah, and he and his wife married in secret as naval cadets. They weren't allowed to marry until their training was complete, so nobody knew about it. I mean, there was so much more about this man's life that I read that would have made one heck of a movie. But... you know, this movie's got some wasted space in it.
Yes.
I mean, there's a chunk of time in the middle of it
where they go to France. They go to their Cannes.
They go to Cannes, France, and they're on shore leave, and they run into Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah.
And she invites them.
How did that serve the story?
It didn't. It didn't serve it at all.
Right in the heart of the movie.
She invites him to a party at a casino, and I'm like going, let's get back to the ship. I mean, this is not telling me anything.
It felt like let's get Liz Taylor in the movie. She's like, okay, kind of looks like Liz Taylor. Didn't have purple eyes.
I mean, I wanted to know about Jesse Brown. I wanted to know about Tom Hudner. I think the movie missed a real opportunity to tell that story.
Yeah, there were a few parts, pardon my pun, where this movie kind of sputtered in the sky. And then I felt like there's some decent flight footage in here.
There is,
You know, it's all right. But I felt like the final 30, 40 minutes of this film had me really shaking my head. And suddenly it becomes the Tom Hudner hero story, which felt strange to me.
Well, yeah. I mean, but...
this is the Jesse Brown story.
Without getting into it, I mean, that's what actually happened.
I know. It's just, I felt like we were getting away from what made this story so effective, so powerful. Right. And I think Jonathan Majors is an incredible actor. And I think he's very good as this guy. And he's great in everything. But there was a lot in here that I wanted to see otherwise. And I went and saw this movie at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was fighting sleep in the middle of it.
Were you really?
And a headache from all the perfume that was being wafted over me from the person next to me. Okay. It was a rough experience.
Wow.
I wanted more out of this. This felt like a very standard. I've seen this movie 1,000 times. This didn't do a whole lot. I love Glenn Powell. It's great to see him in the cockpit a bit again, whatever. But I felt like this was neither good nor bad. It was just a very forgettable movie, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it's a true life Top Gun,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Sure. We got Miggs. Love it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wish I would have known more about
I didn't know anything about the characters going into this.
There was just so much wasted time. Tell me about some of the guys on the ship. Tell me more about Jesse Brown. Let's not spend so much time with some other stuff. It was kind of silly. I think we kind of agree on this. Where do you end up giving Devotion?
Well, I gave it I'm generous here. I gave it 3.5 stars.
Ooh, okay.
I mean, it does a good job telling us the story of that particular period of time, from the time that he, becomes a part of this flight team until, the end of it. But I wanted to see more about the backgrounds of these two individuals.
One other thing that I could have done without, it felt like they jammed in this stuff with the Marines in order to just have an antagonist of the one Marine who hated Jesse Brown pop up constantly throughout the movie.
Yes.
To yell racist slurs at him. I was like, well, even in the big battle in Korea, we got to show this guy standing on a burn barrel, like, don't come over my burn barrel. Like, come on. Whatever. I ended up giving it, give it a score. I gave it 2.5. It's right down the middle.
Yeah.
Neither good nor bad. I just felt like I've seen this before. It's fine. All right, let's move on to our final movie on the marquee this week. It is the animated movie, the new Disney movie for the week. It is from director Don Hill and Queen Yin. It is Strange World, starring the voice cast of Jake Gyllenhaal, Dennis Quaid, among others. Is this yours turn?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm looking like I don't have notes
I think I'm
for
doing this one.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Push me out of the way.
All right. Well, anyway, this is Walt Disney's latest animated feature. It takes place in a village called Avalonia, which is a land surrounded by a wall of mountains. It's the quest of Jaeger Clade. He's a famous explorer voiced by Dennis Quaid. He wants to get to the other side of those mountains. That's his obsession. And his son, Searcher, voiced by Jake Gyllenhaal, he's got other plans. Instead of exploring, he would rather research plants and be a farmer. Now, while trying to cross one of the mountains with his father, Searcher discovers a plant that gives off a green energy. And while Jaeger insists on continuing the quest, Searcher and the rest of the team believe that this new plant called Pando is a historic find, so Jaeger angrily continues his mission alone. Will he show up later in the movie? I wonder. Fast forward to 25 years later, Searcher's made a name for himself. He's the hero of the village for finding Pando. It turns into a fuel resource for Avalonia. He's married to a fellow harvester named Meridian, and that's voiced by Gabrielle Union. They have a son named Ethan, voiced by Jabuke Young White. They also have a three-legged dog named Legend. I don't think I've ever seen a three-legged dog in an animated feature before, so that was new. But one day, Callisto Mall, who's voiced by Lucy Liu, he's one of Jaeger's former expedition teammates. She shows up in a big airship called the Venture and informs the Clades that Pando is losing its power and they need Searcher to help find the cause. So he reluctantly joins a new team to travel into a giant sinkhole where giant roots of Pando have been located. Of course, the rest of the family ends up tagging along. It wouldn't be much of a plot if they didn't. And they end up in this strange subterranean world, hence the title.
World, huh?
Everything's alive. I mean, kudos to the animators for how this world looks. It does look like a psychedelic dream from the 60s. Yep. I wanted to hear some spacey classic rock in the soundtrack. I mean, there's a lot more I could say about what's going on because there is a lot going on. But as it does go on, I was getting kind of confused, and I'm still not sure how the Pando problem was resolved. This is not one of Disney's strongest movies.
No, it is not.
I mean, it looks great. It sounds great. It's got some great pretty decent people providing the voices. I love the diverse representation that's in the movie, but it's missing something, and that something is
Humor?
a story.
Caring?
A story.
Yeah.
I mean, I was starting to lose interest as this movie went on.
I agree. By the way, a synopsis that I could not have done. Nice job.
Oh, thank you.
I felt the same way. I felt like a lot of the characters too were kind of just caricatures of characters to me. The absent father, the classic dead mother, and the son who rebels, only to realize that he's fallen into the same mold as his dad. I felt like I've seen a lot of this. I felt like a lot of the female characters were kind of one note, unfortunately. Like they were there to serve one purpose in this movie. And yeah, my daughter was like, it wasn't very funny. I was like, yeah, you're right.
No.
It wasn't very funny, was it, for a Disney movie? The blob character.
Well,
the
yeah,
blue
I mean,
blob, but
you always got to have the goofy Disney sidekick, and
Yeah.
it's this blue, silly putty blob called
when you-
Splat.
when you boil down, like, what's the story? I mean, it's kind of this green agenda that they have of how we can
Well,
self-sustain.
Yeah, I mean, as I was watching this, I kept asking myself, who was this written for? Because the various messages are more geared towards adults than kids.
Yeah.
I mean, the messages about the dynamics between fathers and sons.
Yeah, the father who's I chase my job success and leave the family no matter what it does to my family. That's not for my 8-year-old.
Yeah, and the environmental theme, I'm assuming this was about climate change.
Yeah.
I mean, this was messaging that's more for us than it was for any kids that were there. I mean, you said it wasn't funny. I thought the funniest line in the whole film was when one of the crew members said to Splat, "I want to merchandise you."
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That was the funniest line
Funny
in the
little
whole
inside
film.
joke, yeah.
And, the bickering between the father and the grandfather and the son, that just got to be annoying.
And that's one of the things that I immediately thought of when walking out of the movie was the protagonist of this movie, Searcher, was really negative through
Yes.
most of the movie. He was really negative, and like, who are we supposed to connect to? Who am I supposed to care about? And it's odd because this directing team did Big Hero 6 and Raya and the Last Dragon, two movies that I really enjoyed. And I thought connected to, and even my daughter was kind of passively watching this movie as opposed to being actively engaged because I don't think she found anyone that she could connect to.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It was afterwards I started thinking about it too. That it was really interesting that I told my daughter that we're going to go see this, and she'd never heard of it, and there was very little advertising, which is rare from a Disney animated movie.
Marketing for this has been really
And I'm wondering
down.
if they knew what they had on their hands. And like, we'll just pull back on the marketing. It's fine. Whatever we get, we get.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was let down by this movie.
I was too. I mean, Disney you do expect a certain standard,
Yes.
and it just didn't get there.
All right, what did you end up giving Strange World?
I mean, again, I think I was generous. 3
all right.
stars. I mean, Strange World could have been even stranger. Make it weird.
Give me something, right?
Make it weird.
Yeah, and so I ended up giving it a 2 out of 5. I
Wow.
didn't enjoy it.
Okay.
If I go to these movies and my daughter doesn't enjoy it, it takes some of the enjoyment out of it for me because some of it is going through her, and it's getting the reviews it deserves. All right, let's take a look ahead. What is coming soon, sir? I believe the weekend of the 9th is what we're looking at. We have a few movies. First one is Empire of Light, Sam Mendes' new film starring Olivia Colman as a cinema manager who meets a young man yearning to leave their little town. They attempt to find their place in life through movies, music, and community. Stars Michael Ward, Colin Firth. That's in theaters. Also in theaters, The Whale, Darren Aronofsky's new drama about a reclusive English teacher who is attempting to reconnect with his estranged daughter. Stars Brendan Fraser in a huge comeback role for him. And then lastly, on Netflix, we have Guillermo del Toro's version of the Pinocchio story, which could be terrifying if I know anything about Guillermo del Toro. Let's thank our sponsor before we move any further, though, Marcus Theaters, the Palace here in Sun Prairie. Thank you for sponsoring this program. We always encourage you to go out and watch your movie from a beautiful dream lounger. And hey, maybe a friend of yours is in the theater and you just don't know it. You never know. Look behind you. There might be somebody you know in there. Next week, I'm going to be talking about the great Santa Claus movie, Violent Night, among other things. We'll see. It's going to be a surprise to all of us. But I'm going to be joined by Jeff Robbins for that one. So make sure you tune in for that. Mr. Sabatke, thanks again for bringing your wisdom.
Hey, thank you, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you. I will see you again in the new year on this program.
All right. Looking forward to it.
You bet. All right. Until next week, I'm Jamison.
And I'm Steve.
Thanks for watching.